Joe Pelle, P-E-L-L-E. I'm the Boulder County Sheriff. I'm here with Governor Polis and Representative Neguse, Senator Bennett, and others. We're going to give you a briefing and answer whatever questions you might have this morning. County Commissioner Claire Levy's here with me. Director of Public Safety Mike Hilke from the state. Overnight, firefighters continued mitigation efforts. Good news, we still have no reports of casualties or fatalities. The one missing person we had last night has been accounted for and is well. So that's awesome news, and actually, I think, given the events that we had yesterday, pretty miraculous. We were fortunate that the winds dissipated last night. We're expecting snow today. That snow has already started. We're hoping to see 3 to 6 inches of snow and some good moisture. That's certainly going to help our efforts. This morning, Governor Polis, myself, and others flew over the area to assess the damage. We know there are approximately 2,000 homes in the burnt area. We certainly did not lose 2,000 homes. We did see entire subdivisions, as I talked about last night, the west side of Superior, Old Town Superior, that are totally gone. That accounts for easily for 500 homes. West of Superior, out towards Marshall, El Dorado Springs area, we saw dozens of burned out homes. The south side of Louisville suffered some pretty catastrophic losses as well, dozens of homes. Damage assessment is continuing today. We won't have final numbers until late tonight or tomorrow, but we are fully expecting this to be 500 or more homes that were lost. The fire burnt in an interesting dynamic with mosaics. You can see how the wind and the topography drove that fire in certain directions, devastated some neighborhoods and some blocks, and left neighbors standing and intact. I know residents want to get back to their homes as soon as possible to assess damage. In many of those neighborhoods that are currently locked off, it's still too dangerous to return. We saw still active fire in many places this morning, and we saw down power lines. We saw a lot of risk that we're still trying to mitigate. As soon as residents are able to get back, we're going to let them back. That's our goal. We don't want to keep people out of their neighborhoods or their homes. Last night, there was a boil water announced for the town of Louisville, city of Louisville. That now extends to the town of Superior. The issue is water pressure was lost in those communities, and so water is potentially contaminated, even domestic water. And it'll need to be boiled in those areas in the southern part of the county around Louisville, Superior, and in Superior. I want to stress that all of the trailheads east of Highway 93 and McCaslin to the south are closed. Stay out of that area. We still have power line issues and fire. We've received an outpouring from the community to be volunteers and to make donations. We appreciate this, but please do not self-deploy to those areas. And for those who want to volunteer, please visit coloradoresponds.org. If you want to make donations, go to our website at boulderoem.com. There are details on how to make donations and how to register and be available through the Red Cross or the Community Foundation of Boulder County. We have a community call center established. This call center has information concerning the fire's impact on Boulder County and can be reached at 303-413-7730. 303-413-7730. Again, we ask if you have general questions about the fire, your neighborhoods, road closures, please call the call center. Do not call 911. I'm going to turn that over to Governor Polis now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Pelle. Just moments ago, we did a aerial reconnaissance mission thanks to the Colorado National Guard of the areas impacted. We were able to do it in the brief window before the snow, and how grateful we are that the snow has started. There were still some areas with active flames. Mostly it was looking at the neighborhood level devastation. As the sheriff indicated, there's neighborhoods where, because of the nature of the fire spread by gusts of up to 105 miles an hour, it would spread to a house here or there, over other houses, past other streets. Very unusual burn pattern. And the other unusual factor is just as in the blink of an eye. This was a disaster in fast motion, all over the course of half a day. Nearly all the damage. Many families having minutes to get whatever they could, their pets, their kids, into the car and leave. The last 24 hours have been devastating. It's really unimaginable. It's hard to speak about. Like many Boulder County residents, I have texts and voicemails from friends letting me know whether they're safe or not, what they've lost. I also spoke to the president just before this press conference. The president called. He offered his support for the people of Colorado. They also gave verbal authorization. The president approved the Expedited Major Disaster Declaration, and that'll be finalized and papered in the next couple hours. What that means is it allows those who suffer loss, small businesses and homeowners, they won't have to wait for the preliminary damage assessment for housing and small business assistance. So that will be forthcoming very soon because of this disaster and the actions that the president took. And the president sends his regards to the people of Colorado and those who are directly impacted. This hit close to home for so many of us, literally in some cases for those of us who live nearby, but also in terms of this being a fire that wasn't a wildfire in the forest. It was a suburban and urban fire. The Costco we all shop at, the Target we buy our kids' clothes at, all surrounded and damaged. Nearly 1,000 homes in two very tight-knit, beautiful communities that our state has are gone. And you know, we talk about houses destroyed, but each house is not just a house, it's a home. It's a sanctuary of comfort for those who live there. It's a reservoir of memories where families were raised. You know, it feels like we've experienced enough loss and tragedy these last 2 years, and then yesterday happened over the course of several hours. This is our community, and to watch it burn so quickly, so unexpectedly, is something that I think we're all just struggling to believe and understand. So different than fires that over a period of weeks and months develop. This played out with 105-mile winds over the course of half a day. We are going to work hard with families and small businesses to rebuild our treasured communities, homes and sanctuaries for folks, the short-term impact for housing needs. So far, it looks like the two major hospitals in the areas were spared. Looks like schools were spared. And we might have our very own New Year's miracle on our hands if it holds up that there was no loss of life. We know that many people had just minutes to evacuate, and if that was successfully pulled off by all the affected families, that's really quite a testimony to preparedness and emergency response. I also spoke to the FEMA administrator this morning and let her know that that with this Expedited Major Disaster Declaration, we're going to need all the help we can get. She asked other ways it could help. We talked about short-term housing needs. We talked about additional needs for hospital capacity because of the hospital, Avista, that will be, while not destroyed, out of commission for a period of days or weeks. It's uncertain when that'll be back at 100% capacity. You know, Mr. Rogers once told his audience, when I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You'll always find people who are helping. And time again, we see those helpers here in Colorado. Sheriff Pelly, his deputies, Director Stan Hilke, National Guard, hundreds of brave firefighters from municipal fire departments across the Denver metro region, law enforcement, first responders. Many of these brave men and women themselves lost homes or were uncertain whether they even had homes to return to, but they stayed on the job And on behalf of a grateful state of Colorado, we want to say a profound thank you to everyone who's helped. I'm now going to say a few words in Spanish. Buenos días. Las últimas 24 horas han sido absolutamente devastadoras. Es difícil de imaginar lo que ha pasado y difícil hablar de esta mañana. Esto no se siente real, se siente como si estuviéramos viviendo en una pesadilla. Yo hablé con el presidente y él da apoyo a las personas de Colorado y aprobó el Expedited Major Disaster Declaration. Y los fundas pueden ir a los negocios y a las personas que pierdan sus casas. Una y otra vez veo a esos ayudantes aquí en Colorado. Quiero dar gracias a Sheriff Pelly, Director Stan Hilke, los bomberos y todos que ayudan a las familias in Boulder County. A profound sense of gratitude for all those who have stayed up all night working to help those in need. I know there's families out there now watching this, not knowing for sure whether they have a home to return to. Know that we are with you every step of the way. For those who've lost everything they had, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. But you have your family, you have your health, you made it out. These are physical objects that you've lost. You will rebuild. We will mobilize everything the state has, and with the support of the federal government, to make sure you have the resources you need to rebuild your lives here in Colorado. With that, we'll turn it over to Senator Bennett.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for your leadership again in another profoundly difficult moment for this state with just one day left in the calendar year. I'm going to be brief. I want to start by thanking the sheriff and all of the first responders who did just an unbelievable job of getting people out of here and of making sure that people evacuated. We don't know what the final numbers are going to be here, but when you fly over this, to know that the loss of life is, you know, if there is any, is going to be as limited as it is a profound testament to the way that the first responders alerted people to the danger, and I think importantly the way people themselves responded to the alerts that they received. And so I just want to start by saying thank you. And second, I want to thank President Biden for responding so quickly here, and you have my commitment, and I know the commitment of the entire congressional delegation, to do absolutely everything we can to work with the governor to make sure that the full measure of the federal government's response is brought to bear here. In Colorado, we're used to this, unfortunately. We've had our share of floods and fires and natural disasters, and what I can say, for at least for the last decade or so, is that in every single case, we have built back stronger than we were before the disaster happened, and I am absolutely certain that that's going to be the case here. Boulder County and the communities that have been affected have been through this. This fire may have happened on the plains of Colorado, which is very unusual, but this county we know is mountain strong, and we know we're going to be able to rebuild better than we were before. And I want to turn it over to my colleague from the delegation who represents this part of the state, Joe Nabis.
Well, good morning, everyone. First, I want to start by thanking our firefighters, our first responders, police officers, everyone who's been working so diligently throughout the day yesterday and this morning and through the night to protect lives and livelihoods. We are incredibly grateful for your service and your bravery, and that starts with my friend and colleague, Sheriff Pelly. Many of you know that Sheriff Pelly is one of the longest serving sheriffs in Colorado history, and he has had his fair share, more than his fair share, of disasters during his tenure. And we are so grateful for his leadership and the work that all of his deputies and the incredible firefighters who drove up last night from West Metro and from Jefferson County, from Denver, really across our state to help protect our community. Thank you to Governor Polis for his leadership, to Mayor Stoltzman and Mayor Folsom, both of whom have done an incredible job under some really troubling circumstances, leading their respective cities of Louisville and Superior, not knowing whether their homes were safe during this terrible tragedy. Yesterday was a devastating day for Boulder County, for Superior, and for Louisville. These fires, as you heard the governor say, are unprecedented. They moved through neighborhoods with a speed and a magnitude like we have never seen before. And we know already that the damage will be costly and disastrous, and we saw that for ourselves during the overflight that we just took a few minutes ago with the governor and the senator. As the sheriff laid out, there are countless families in our community today who are learning that they have lost their homes and all of their possessions. For each of the individuals who are learning of this loss, for those who have been evacuated from their homes, we stand with you, ready to assist you in any way that we can. I had the opportunity yesterday to visit with many individuals, constituents, neighbors at one of the major evacuation sites in Lafayette, in my hometown, at the YMCA. And to hear their stories, as the governor said, many of whom literally had minutes to evacuate their homes and learned that they had in fact lost everything they owned, was heartbreaking. But I also was heartened to see so many of our fellow Coloradans there at the evacuation center, dropping off supplies, neighbors taking care of neighbors. It's the Colorado way. It's what we're known for, and that is certainly on full display today. Our prayers are with everyone impacted by the fires. It's going to be a long road to recovery. We are grateful that FEMA gave swift authorization yesterday to the FMAG grants that were necessary to help battle the flames, and grateful to President Biden for his swift approval today of the major disaster declaration, which will be critical in terms of bringing federal resources here to Boulder County and to the many homeowners who have lost so much, for folks who are looking for housing assistance, small business assistance, and so forth. We'll be working with FEMA over the next several hours and with the state and local leaders to ensure that those resources are brought to bear as quickly as possible. I'll just close by saying, perhaps stating the obvious, which is that this has been an incredibly difficult year for Colorado and an incredibly difficult year for Boulder County. But we have been faced and tested with challenges before, and we've always risen to the occasion. And I have every confidence that we're going to do so this time around. And with that, I think we'll open it up for questions.
Sheriff Pelley, any update on the origin?
1 second. Commissioner, Senator, Mayor.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Ashley Stolzman, Louisville Mayor. I just want to take a moment to thank all of the first responders, Police Chief Dave Hayes and our Fire Chief John Wilson, for the tremendous effort they've put forward. I also want to thank everyone for their patience. We need community members to continue to stay out of the area until the evacuation order is lifted. And when folks do get back, we need everyone's help in conserving water. We're still under a boil order, and so we need everybody to follow the instructions on the CDC website and maintain safety if you are drinking the water. Louisville's a very strong community. We stand with Superior. We share a high school, we share a library, and we're going to get through this together. We've supported each other nearly for 2 years through the coronavirus pandemic, and we'll continue to support each other and work through this. So thank you all for your patience, and please continue to follow the instructions on the OEM website.
Okay, questions?
Governor, Sheriff, any update on the origin? Any reason to believe it's anything other than high winds, a power line, sparks, and dry grouse?
We do know we had power lines down in the area of the origin of the fire. The origin of the fire hasn't been confirmed. It's suspected to be power lines, but we are investigating that today. And we have folks on the ground as we speak trying to pinpoint that cause.
Anything else being investigated, Sheriff, other than the power lines?
We're investigating anything we find out there.
Residents would like to know about containment or plans for the fire today.
The fire, the snow has started. Absent any major changes in the weather, there's very limited potential for additional negative impact. There are still some smoldering flames. There's finalization, but at this point, as long as the weather holds up here, there's not going to be substantial additional damage from this fire.
And I want to introduce a hero, Mike Smith, Smitty. He's been the incident commander on this fire since it started, and is hopefully being replaced today by a federal incident manager, but he's done a hell of a job. on very little sleep, and so he's available for those type of questions as well.
The governor said there were nearly 1,000 homes lost. Is that accurate?
So it's all a good guess right now. As I said, we know we lost approximately 500 homes around Superior, the west side of Superior. We saw dozens of homes burned out in between Superior and El Dorado Springs. We saw dozens of homes burnt in the south part of Louisville. I would estimate it's going to be at least 500 homes. I would not be surprised if it's 1,000.
We also saw in the aerial reconnaissance there were some homes that were partially destroyed. There were areas where there were roofs that were burnt out. So in addition to completely destroyed homes, you know, with burn pits, there was a number of damaged home and damaged commercial properties as well. So some were totaled, some were destroyed. It'll take some time to get the final numbers back for the exact numbers, but as the sheriff indicated, over 500, upwards of 1,000, as well as a number of stores and commercial properties that were damaged.
Governor, Sheriff, you were talking about maybe 1,000 homes, 2-3 people a home, 2,000 or 3,000 people. We're getting ready for snow here. How are we going to house all of these people? What are the plans? Realizing it's early, what can you share with those that are wondering where they can go, what they can do?
Yeah, well, there's temporary emergency shelters, and those will, of course, serve people as long as needed. This was also a topic of my conversation with the FEMA administrator and the president about what FEMA can do to help support some of the medium-term housing needs of members that want their kids to be able to return to their school, want some sense of normalcy before the actual physical rebuilding of their home can occur. So that's going to be a priority of our administration, working with the federal government to provide as many options to people as possible. The county and the sheriff did a great job setting up the emergency shelters, and it's my understanding there's about 200 people currently at the emergency shelters. Again, many have fled to stay with friends or you know, in other areas, and that will likely continue as long as it's needed to serve those 200 people. Usually in these type of events, that can be a matter of weeks.
What was the strategy for mitigating this fire? It had to have been incredibly difficult with those fires, and talk to us a little bit about what your firefighters went through, please.
Smitty, yeah.
So our strategy from the beginning was life safety. So with the winds the way they were and the fire behavior from the initial start of the fire was moving basically at the same speed of the wind and the light fuels. So our priority was to work in conjunction with our partners, with law enforcement, EMS, and fire to get people out of the way. We didn't actively fight the fire for the first few hours. It was really about life safety. As we started to get a little bit of ahead of the curve, we started to be able to anchor into some of the places and get some good firefighting done, but our priority through the entire event was life safety for both public and firefighters.
And just to highlight how rapid this event was, this was a rapid fire over a period of hours with gusts of up to 105 miles an hour, leapfrogging instantly over highways, over roads, across neighborhoods. Really kind of an alignment of many of the worst possible factors that firefighters fear. I mean, first of all, a very dry fuel. We've had very little precipitation, very little snow, coupled with gusts of up to 105, 110 miles an hour, really led to a combination that was more destructive in a shorter period of time than anything we've seen.
Sheriff Belly, can you talk a little bit more about the power lines that were involved in this? Were they high tension lines, were they local service? And then also, Sheriff, you and Governor, I wonder if you can share a little bit what you saw from the air and what everything looked like on the ground. Be a little bit more specific with those details.
So I don't have details. My view of this entire event is from a sort of a 30,000 foot level. I don't know what kind of power lines, or you know, whether they were transmission lines or individual lines into private property. I don't know. We are, again, actively investigating today, trying to determine the origin and cause of the fire. And when we get that and we narrow it down, we will make that public. What was the second question?
Can you describe kind of in detail what it looked like from up above? Everyone's kind of seeing it from the side right now, but what is, you know, are all the homes and neighborhoods destroyed? They leapfrog? How does it work?
No, it's like any other fire we've seen where it's a mosaic and the fire runs in fingers based on topography and wind. And you'll see where the fire infuels, like in gulches where there's shrubs and taller grasses, where it entered neighborhoods and took out like an entire block and then left everything around it standing. And then, on the other hand, like on the west side of Superior, in that subdivision in the old part of town, there's an entire community that's completely wiped out. That's just smoking holes in the ground. So it was intense in places, and then other places it just got in topography, driven by the wind, and it ran in fingers.
Can you tell us what you know about utility lines and the potential for freezing temperatures overnight?
I know they're working as hard as they can, as fast as they can to restore power. So a major issue with late season fires for us, and we've experienced this in the past, is we have warm temperatures, we have wind, we have a big fire, we lose power, and then the next day we freeze over. And so all those homes, we are in danger of broken pipes and running water and that. And so I know restoration of power is a major priority.
Is US 36 still closed and when will it reopen?
Do you have any?
It is still closed. We're still continuing to do damage assessments along the road. We are looking very hard at how quickly we can get some of those major thoroughfares open, but I don't currently have a time.
Did you all hear that okay?
Sheriff, unconfirmed calls to our newsroom that there were fire hydrants in Louisville that might have been dry or not operating yesterday. Any confirmation, any information on that line?
Yeah, they were having water pressure issues, but here's what happens when you have neighborhoods burn out. The individual homes start leaking, right? And then the pressure to those individual hydrants becomes less and less. And so I know they were having problems with fire pressure or water pressure. That's actually not unexpected in a major event like this.
Sheriff, you said one missing person had been located. Are there any other indications there are missing individuals?
No, we don't have any. We don't have family members calling in, telling us they can't find Aunt Rose. None of that. The one lady that was reported last night was found fine. It's unbelievable when you look at the devastation that we don't have a list of 100 missing persons, but we don't. And so, again, I'm hoping that's a miracle, because it would be, given the circumstances.
Any other utility issues, gas lines, anything else like that to be aware of or to get back in operation?
We're working closely with Excel and all the different power providers in the area to do quick assessments on where we can. Like was alluded to previously, one of our big concerns, and we've got a group specifically working on how we're going to restore power where it's safe, to make sure that the power lines are inspected before we re-energize, and that the gas lines are all intact before we do that. So we are actively working on that. As far as major transmission lines or gas infrastructure that's been damaged, I don't have any information on that.
Thank you.
Sheriff, Governor, lots of calls to our newsroom from people wanting to know if their homes are still standing or destroyed. What is the best way you recommend people to get that information? You're obviously limiting access in some areas. What do you say to those people that want to know?
So once the damage assessment is done, address by address, we'll be able to post a list of homes that were lost. That won't happen for a while. That will take at least a day to accomplish that. There is a map of the burn area that will be posted on the Boulder OEM website. Please keep in mind that only a portion of the homes in that burn area are affected, and there are a lot of unaffected homes. There will be the ability, I think, soon for flights, that kind of thing, to give more information to the public. But right now, I can't provide information on specific addresses.
How satisfied were you with your readiness level and the equipment you needed to fight this best you could, sir?
For the hand that we were dealt, I don't think that we could have done a better job. The initial response from the local fire departments, then stepping up through the county response, the delegation to the sheriff, and then the cooperation through with the governor's office, through the state DHSEM and DFPC were both fantastic. And I think the collaborative effort really did show the preparedness level and the amount of preparations that we've done here in Boulder and statewide as well.
Yeah, there's no technology or equipment that's available to have halted this kind of fire in its tracks with 105-mile winds and the dry conditions and the fuel that was available. But the firefighters, the sheriff, the state assistance. They did everything they could, as you said, Smitty, with the hand that they were dealt.
Governor, you've dealt with a lot of challenges in the past 2 years with COVID. You talked about what you saw from the helicopter. Can you let us inside the emotions of what you had to watch in that helicopter?
You know, I of course have many friends in the affected areas. I just want to read a text from one that I got, a friend who lost their home, or doesn't know if they lost their home. She said, "I'm in the Springs with my parents. My sons got out okay. We may not have homes tomorrow, but we have each other. I'll miss the treasures we've collected for the last 30 plus years, and while not replaceable, that's not people. And remember, we will have homes. A house is made of sticks and stones. A home is made of love alone." With her attitude, the people of Colorado are resilient. The people of Colorado are strong. They will build back. This has been a tough few years all around. The 3 largest wildfires in the history of our state. But to put things in perspective, those 3 largest wildfires combined, while over 600,000 acres, each one of them over 200,000 acres, still destroyed less homes and less businesses than this fire of 6,000 acres, because this was fundamentally an urban and suburban fire. The people of Colorado will build back if we're granted this New Year's miracle of no loss of life. It truly is nothing short of miraculous. And we have one another. Most, if not all, people got out and are safe. And we, as their friends and neighbors and fellow Coloradans, are going to do everything we can to help them rebuild their lives.
Let's do one last question.
Do we have an estimate on containment or how many acres are currently burning?
So the total area of the fire, the burnt area, has been updated overnight with the state airplane overflight to 6,000 acres. There are still areas burning inside the fire zone, around homes and shrubbery and that kind of thing, but we're not expecting to see any growth in the fire today. I think we're pretty well contained, except for what's happening inside the fire zone. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, as far as a percentage number, we're still calling it 0% contained, but as the sheriff said, I don't think that we will see much fire growth. But this isn't a fire that we would traditionally see like in the mountains, where we would be going out and digging hand line and using heavy equipment to dig containment lines. This is more about working around the perimeters of homes and working our way through the process. So we're having to kind of change our thought process on what containment looks like as far as a percentage, but I do think that our forward progress is going to be very minimal from this point on.
And just speaking anecdotally, from looking at the aerial reconnaissance that we did, very little fire, very little active fire, mostly burnt out pits and areas, grassland fires, move fast, limited fuel, different than trees, and a few areas where we saw smoldering flames, a few here and there, really areas that might have just be finishing off their burn, almost all of them with no available fuel around them. So again, absent the kind of winds that we had before, they're not likely to jump everywhere. They're burning through the very limited fuel that they have, and are likely to extinguish themselves. And of course, we also now have snow and precipitation in the area. Thank you to those across Colorado and those across the world who have joined with the people of Colorado in helping us get through this difficult time. We thank you for your love, your prayers, and your affection. And we look forward to your help in helping our affected families and our community build back stronger. Thank you.